The following program is hosted by Fox Communities Credit Union. The views and opinions expressed are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other hosts or advertisers.
Fox Communities Credit Union.
Good afternoon and welcome in to another edition of Bringing It to You Straight. Straight answers to your financial questions with Fox Communities Credit Union. If it's your first time tuning in, we're glad to have you. And this is our second episode of Bringing It to You Straight. Our first show went so well last month. And if you missed it, you can always find the episode streaming on our website. Just click on the shows tab and you can find Bringing It to You Straight. We've got so much to talk about today. Still to come, if you are in the market for buying a new car, we'll talk with the auto buying specialist at Fox Communities Credit Union to talk all about car buying. And stick around for our segment all about fraud, and today we're focused on tax scams. Lots of good stuff to come, but right now I'm excited to welcome Adam Landsberg. He is the Chief Lending Officer. He's going to get us started today on Bringing It to You Straight. Good afternoon, Adam. Welcome to the show.
Hey, good afternoon, Haley. How are you?
I'm doing great. The sun is kind of shining. Is it shining where you are?
It's trying. I'm here in our corporate office here in Appleton, but yeah, it's trying to peak out. It looks like it's a little windy, but it's better than the rain.
It's better than the rain. Yeah, things are really greening up out there. It's nice to see that spring is on its way. And I'm sure it's a great time to get connected with the folks over at Fox Communities Credit Union. Adam, can you bring us up to speed to what your role is as Chief Lending Officer and a little bit about your background?
Sure, I'd love to. Thanks again for the time, and thanks for having me and the rest of the team today. So yeah, as the Chief Lending Officer, I oversee our basically all lending functions for the credit union, from commercial lending to mortgage lending. I know you're going to talk about our auto lending group today, which is a fantastic group, our to consumer lending. And, I've been doing this, as my youngest son likes to say, I've been doing this since the 1900s. I didn't feel like I was that old until he reminded me of that. But yeah, I've been in banking nearly 24 years, and I've been with Fox now about a year. So this lending locally, I live on the north side of Appleton with my family, and really connected to the community, and we're here to help. So I think that's what we wanted to talk a little bit about today was just the importance of having a local connection, a local banker, especially during times like these. I think if we've learned anything during the pandemic, you really turn to who you trust, right? You pick up the phone when you're concerned about something. I think the word that's been used a lot has been unprecedented, right? So people, we've not known how to react. I was actually at a business meeting today with a business owner that's owned a business for 40 years, and he made mention he thought he had seen it all until we literally had a government shutdown and impacted so many different people in so many different ways. And I think that's the big thing we've learned over the last year is we're here to help. Pick up the phone. I kind of would use the adage of, you're a homeowner, right? If you always want to have a plumber that you trust or an electrician. You're going to talk a little bit about auto buying here in the near future, but a mechanic. It's really important to do the same thing in banking, to be always reviewing your budget, thinking about what you can afford, what you can't afford, but having that trusted advisor on the other end that you can call up and say, hey, I've got a problem. Can you help me? That's what we're here to do.
Yes, and you mentioned that emphasis on local. It's nice to know someone in your backyard. You can think, oh, yeah, Adam, I know him. He knows the area, too, and you can count on him when you've got a question or a situation that pops up.
Yeah, I think the local piece, I live in the north side. I've lived there for the last nearly 20 years. Obviously, our geography covers all of northeast Wisconsin. And, I think it is different, from anything from home buying to somebody that's having a hard time paying a bill. We're all connected locally. When you think about the credit union model, people helping people, it is much easier to be able to have a conversation about maybe a company that that's having a hard time, or how we can mutually have that conversation about what's gone on locally. It's so much easier to be able to describe what it is when the person on the other end, or the person that you're sitting in front of, really understands where you live, where you come from, and what it takes locally to be able to make it happen.
Adam Lensberg, Chief Lending Officer, is kicking off our first segment here on Bringing It to You Straight. And I want to talk to you, Adam, all about credit. We hear this term a lot. Why is it important to kind of keep an eye on things to monitor that credit?
It gets brought up a lot, and there's an evolution of credit. But basically, my suggestion to most anyone, and this is inclusive of business owners, most businesses as well take a look at personal credit, but there's these credit bureaus, TransUnion, Equifax, Experian, are these places that monitor how we pay our bills, and those are specifically how you pay your mortgage, as an example, or your auto loan, your consumer loans, your credit cards, and it's the basis for how we create what's something called risk-based pricing. So the better you pay the easiest way to look at it is the better you pay your bills, the more on time that you are, the better the rate that you're going to have when you're looking to buy an auto loan, like Mike's going to talk about here in an upcoming segment. But I really encourage people with your financial institution to have that conversation of what is your credit score, how are you monitoring it. I know it's not necessarily through Fox, but again, just advice that I always give people is, you can get a free credit report. It's freecreditreport.com actually annually, and take a look what's in there. I actually monitor my credit with an application on my phone with Credit Karma. Like, just take a look at these things. There's things out there that are free, but you always want to be taking a look to understand. And I think you'll talk a little bit about fraud later, but how closely can you align yourself to what's going on in your credit? That is how banks and credit unions set pricing for your home loan, auto loan, personal loan, is based on your credit history.
Such good advice, and it applies to so many big moments in life, including, buying that first car, getting that first home, which makes me want to ask one more question of you, Adam. The current real estate market, what is your opinion right now on how things look out there?
It's interesting. I think this is, again, back to unprecedented. We obviously do a lot of real estate lending in Northeast Wisconsin, both commercially and residentially. And for those that have owned a house for a little bit, I made a comment to a different board of directors group recently that I basically still feel like locally there is some catch up on home appreciation, say from the 2007 to 2010 mortgage meltdown that some may remember. So that's been okay on some level where our homes have appreciated locally, because it certainly felt like there wasn't much movement there for a while. But now that's getting to the point that, again, some folks are a little worried it might be overheated, right? Like see home values that go up so quickly, so rapidly with such low interest rates. It's obviously got to be a case-by-case scenario for each first-time home buyer or someone that's looking to get into a different home, which is why I would go back to monitoring your credit and your budget. And no matter what's going on in the market, make sure that you're making common sense decisions on what you truly can afford, and making sure that it's okay to say no. If as the market continues to roll on, I don't think anyone can predict where it's going to be 3 months, 6 months, a few years from now. But what you can do personally is make sure you stick to a budget, adhere to it, and talk to your trusted professionals around you, to make sure that you're gathering all the information to make a good decision on such a large purchase. But yes, home valuations are up, and it's tough going out there right now to find a home.
Some great advice, Adam. I'm glad that you were able to kick us off today. Where can people go to learn more about your work or to connect with you over at Fox?
I think the easiest way is come right through to foxcu.org. You'll see right on the homepage there that we're always available. Otherwise, I think shoot me an email. Always available at aalandsverk@foxcu.org. If I said that too quickly, but those would be the two places. Shoot me an email. I'm always available to talk to those in the community, as well as go right to our webpage. And there's you see different spots where you can look me up either in the commercial space or the mortgage space. But feel free to reach out and give us feedback. But we're always, again, we feel good about what we're providing in the community. We feel good about what we're doing for our members. And, that feedback is always welcome as well. So appreciate the time.
All right, Adam, great to have you. Thanks for starting us off today.
Thank you.
All right, Adam Landsberg, Chief Lending Officer with Fox Communities Credit Union. We're not done yet. Stick around with us. We do want to switch gears and focus on getting that car, auto buying. We'll talk with Mike Pastorelli coming up next when Bringing It to You Straight returns on WHBY. And welcome back to Bringing It to You Straight answers to your financial questions with Fox Communities Credit Union. It's an exciting moment for anyone getting the keys to that brand new car. But what should be going into the decisions surrounding buying that new car, and especially those financial decisions? We are getting some great tips today from the auto buying specialist with Fox Communities Credit Union. Mike Pastorelli joins us now. Good afternoon, Mike. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right. Well, this is always an exciting thing to talk about. I know a lot of us have had that moment of getting the keys to that brand new car or new to us car, or maybe mom and dad's car, but still exciting nonetheless to get those wheels on the road. So I want to ask you a little bit about your background first and what brings you to this role as an auto buying specialist.
Well, I started in the car business in 1987, so I'll let you do that math. That was a very long time ago. And I've done, just about everything there is to do at a car dealership, from, salesman to finance manager to new car manager, used car manager, general sales manager. So I just have a lot of experience, in the field. I've probably, worked somewhere in the neighborhood of 30,000 plus car deals in my career. So I like to think I know a little bit about it.
I'd say 30,000. Absolutely. Absolutely, Mike. So is there a good time to buy a car? Is there a best time to buy a car for those maybe in the works to do just that?
Yeah, and I always tell, our members, I think the best time to buy a car is when you don't need a car, because there's no emotion in it. When you're in a panic, people do things that, in a panic, and sometimes it's not always the right thing. I've had, literally hundreds upon hundreds of conversations with either customers or members. When they say the last car they bought was a huge mistake, it's always followed by, but I had to do it, had to make a decision on the spot, so I did. My number one rule with our members, whether it's at, one of the seminars I do or when people just call up in general asking for advice, take all the emotion out of it, because at the end of the day, it's just a means of transportation. So you don't need to be emotional about it. Be logical about it, and that's where you're going to save the most money.
So, Mike, what decisions should maybe be made before even stepping foot in a dealership? I know it can be hard to maybe avoid going and looking at those shiny cars in the lot, but what should someone consider doing before even stepping foot in that dealership?
Sitting down with a pencil and a piece of paper and really looking over, your budget and really what you're comfortable spending a month. Because the thing you got to remember is, once you commit to that 5-year or 6-year or 4-year whatever finance agreement, that's a monthly payment every month for the next 60 to 72 months. And sometimes it gets to be a struggle, and what people think or what you think you can afford, once you start making that payment and all your other life expenses start to pop up, sometimes it's more of a struggle than people think. So really kind of sit down, figure out where you're really comfortable, and be realistic with yourself. I mean, everybody, it's funny, in 87, people wanted to be at $200 to $250 a month, and in 2021, people still want to be at $250 a month, and the car prices have just changed so much. So you really got to sit down and take a good hard look, and then contact somebody at Fox and find out what that number will get you, and we can do the math backwards. So if you want to be at $300 a month, we can tell you how much that will finance, and give you an idea of where to look and what to look for, so you're not overreaching.
All right, Mike. So you've put some thought into this. You've maybe crunched some numbers. You put some considerations into what maybe checks the boxes for your family. Maybe it's a growing family. You're looking to upgrade to that minivan, something like that. Going into the dealership, first and foremost, should someone make an appointment or can you just walk in?
You can do both. I think nowadays, I really think the days of people just walking in are kind of a thing of the past. Most people have already done their research. They kind of know what they're looking for. So, when they walk into the dealership, they're looking for something really specific. So that's why doing your diligence ahead of time to really to have a grip on what you're looking for and what it's going to cost you is just brilliant, because it just gives you kind of control. And that's what the dealers fight for. When I was in the car business, that's the one thing we always tried to do is control the deal. And the one that controls it usually, comes out the winner, if you will. So if as a customer, if going in, how much you can afford and you really stick with that number, it's just going to put everything in your favor for sure.
So you've arrived at the dealership, Mike. What steps should someone expect once getting there?
When you first get there, they're going to obviously sit you down. They're going to do a needs analysis. They're going to try and figure out, what you're looking for, what your needs are, and they're going to try and focus on that. And then they're going to really spend a lot of time on payment, because that's really where they want to focus their attention is on payment. So, if you go in, kind of have an idea what you want, just be wary. Some of the dealerships still use the old time practices where they guarantee you, so much for a trade-in, and there's just no such thing. I mean, the value of a car is the value of a car. There is no minimum value or maximum value. It's worth what it's worth. If they can offer you more than the next guy, there's a good chance that they're asking more. So really kind of focus on, on the trade difference. Boy, I think I'm jumping all over the place, aren't I? Sorry.
You're doing great, Mike, and it's some fantastic information. I'm just curious, how does someone go about finding out what your car really is worth? Is there a website? Do they look to Blue Book? Where do they go?
Well, I go to the Manhattan Market Report. So, I mean, if anybody has questions, they can, of course, call us, and we can help you with that. But I think if you go online, if you look for similar cars and what they're selling for, if you're driving a 2015, Nissan Altima with 50,000 miles on it, you can go see what those things are selling for at the dealership level. And if they're selling for, $12,000 retail, then yours is probably going to be worth somewhere in the $9,000 to $10,000 range. That's kind of a big key. Kelly, the thing with Blue Book and the thing, conversation I get into a lot is you have to be able to see the car. So the biggest thing is going someplace that you trust, that you're comfortable with, and you think that they're going to shoot straight at you. A lot of the dealers nowadays have market-based pricing, which means the price you see on the internet is the price. Now they're going to give you actual cash value for the car because they can't over-allow, because if they're not going to discount their price, can't over-allow on the trade difference either. So that's going to give you kind of a good ballpark. And I would say kind of don't be afraid to shop a little bit and get a couple of opinions from different dealerships, whether it's a big store, one of the big franchise stores, or one of the small independent stores. It'll give you kind of a good idea of what the value is.
All right. We're talking with Mike Pastorelli today, auto buying specialist with Fox Communities Credit Union. Some great advice, and we haven't even taken the test drive yet. So we're going to stick around and continue this conversation with Mike in our next half hour. Also on the way, we're talking tax fraud with Heidi Keeker. That is still to come. It's bringing it to you straight answers to your financial questions with Fox Communities Credit Union. And we are back with more of Bringing It to You straight answers to your financial questions with Fox Communities Credit Union. Still to come in this half hour, some great tips about tax scams as Heidi Keeker, our fraud officer, joins us towards the end of the show. But right now, we're talking to Mike Pastorelli, auto buying specialist at Fox, and we're getting some great questions answered in that process of buying that new car. Mike joins us again. Hello to you, Mike. Welcome back to the show.
Glad to still be here.
All right. So we've been to the dealership now. Maybe we've taken that test drive. We've got some ideas about that dream car in our minds. But of course, there's the price tag, Mike. So how do we kind of determine how much of a car we can afford?
Well, strictly focus on your monthly payment. Always focus on the payment because that's really all that matters. I get a lot of requests. People tell me that they want to be in the $25,000 budget range, but they want their payment to be at $300 a month, and with that math, it just doesn't work. So the easiest way to do it is we can calculate, just for an example. If you have really good credit and you qualify for our 1.99% interest rate, which you can get for either 60 or 72 months. So for 60 months at 1.99, the payment's going to be $17.53 per every $1,000 finance. So that's $17.53 times $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. That's going to give you your payment range. And then if you wanted to go a longer term because you wanted to spend a little bit more money and still keep the same payment range at 72 months. At the 1.99, it'd be $14.75. And this is all information you can just call us and get at any time. And then this way you can kind of figure your own budget because you just do the math yourself. It keeps it real simple.
All right, monthly payment is key. That's a great piece of advice. What about the age of the car? Does that impact or can it impact the monthly payment? And do you have any examples of that, Mike?
Sure. I mean, it impacts it based on term. So, like for us, a 2016 and newer would still qualify for the 72 months. 13, 14, and 15 would be 48 months, and anything older would be 36 months. So, and there's exceptions, obviously, to every rule, but generally speaking, that's the way to look at it. So, the older the car, the shorter the term. So, what people discover is that they'll adjust their budget accordingly because they think, they'll look at a car and it's $200 a month, and then, they'll call and talk to me, and I'll show them that, well, if you went with a newer car, even though it's more money because we can get a longer term, it's still kind of the same payment ballpark.
Mike, we spoke with Adam towards the top of the hour. He talked with us about finding that credit score. So once we've found it, does your credit score impact that monthly payment as well?
Yes, it does. So the better the credit, the lower the interest rate. So it's obviously a risk-based thing. So people with, a lower credit score are going to pay a little higher interest rate. But we still encourage them to contact us and let us help, educate them on really where they should be and what they should be doing. I'd rather they contact us than before they go to one of those, they call them the buy here, pay here stores where you pay a high interest rate and you always also pay a lot more money for the car. There's better ways to try and repair your credit. No, we can't help everybody, obviously, but we sure would like the opportunity.
Mike, you mentioned, of course, determining how much you can afford by that monthly payment, but I know that there are always a couple other things that can come into the mix, talking maybe your insurance, maintenance costs, fuel, future repairs. Can you give some examples of maybe some average costs of those types of things?
Well, insurance really is such a variable thing that it just depends on the vehicle and people's insurance records on what they pay, their age. So that's kind of a tricky one. But fuel economy is something that people don't often think about, and that comes into the budgeting again. Is understanding that when you buy a car, your monthly car payment isn't the only expense. I mean, obviously you have to put gas in it. Some cars get 17 miles to the gallon. Some cars get 40 miles to the gallon. So that's something you got to kind of think about. Maintenance, how old is the car? Do you have anything put aside for, is it going to need tires? Is it going to need mufflers? Is it going to need a brake job? That kind of stuff. So that, that also comes down to the dealer's disclosure as well. So, finding a dealer that you're comfortable with, finding a dealer that you trust, talk to them. Don't be afraid to ask them what they did to this vehicle before they put it on the lot for sale. Some dealers, will do a lot. They'll put new tires on it, new brakes on it, ball joints, tie rod ends. They really go through it head to toe. Some dealerships just wash it and throw it on the lot for sale. And I think that's a lot of reasons why, ABC dealer will have a car for $14,000 and XYZ dealer will have what looks like the same vehicle, same year, make, model, same mileage, average. But maybe their car is $1,000 more. Well, find out why. Because at the end of the day, if you buy the less expensive car and then have to spend another $1,000 to $1,500 in the next 12 months upgrading it, then you really haven't saved anything, have you?
Some great tips here from Mike Pastorelli, auto buying specialist with Fox Communities Credit Union. A few more questions to ask you here, and one of them, Mike, before we wrap things up, I have one question about something we hear a lot in commercials, 0% down financing, a lot of flashy terms, I guess. What do you have to say about choosing the best in financing terms?
So, I guess you gotta take the one that best fits your needs. You hear a lot of these 0% finance commercials. Well, you get 0% for this car, or you get a rebate. An additional maybe $1,500 or $2,000 off. My advice has always been take the rebate. You want to finance the least amount you possibly can. The interest rate, although 0% sounds great, but it takes you 5 years to recoup the money to be able to make that even. And in all actuality, I think the average car loan is about 39 months. I mean, people take them out for 72, but within 39 months, it's either paid off or traded in, or it was wrecked and it's been paid off. So very few loans actually go full term. So you got to kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Is you definitely, I always say this, if you would win the lottery tomorrow and you were all of a sudden going to be able to pay that car off, you want it to be a lower number. So, and the dealers will share that with you. They'll show you the difference, the 0% versus, 2% and what it's going to save you. And then you can figure out how long it's going to take. Yeah, you're saving money in interest, but you're borrowing more money, so you really don't save anything.
All right, Mike, we've got about a minute here. So tell us some advantages of working with Fox Communities Credit Union when they're looking for a car.
I think it's all about control and knowing exactly, being educating yourself, knowing exactly what questions to ask, know exactly what you're looking for. So when you go in there, the dealers know that they're dealing with somebody who's actually done their homework and done their due diligence, so they're prepared. It kind of eliminates a lot of the smoke and mirrors that they try to play. And a lot of dealers have really gotten away from that, but they're still they're a for-profit business, and I'm okay with that. I mean, they're a business for profit. I made money when I sold cars. That was my goal. That was my objective. So I don't begrudge them that. But I don't want to be the guy that walks out where they're all high-fiving and having a beer because they just made the most money they've ever made off a customer. And I try to make sure that that doesn't happen with our members that are working with me. I just try to make sure that, they get a fair deal, they're treated with respect, and they buy a nice vehicle.
Well, I've sure learned a lot from you today, Mike, and I think our listeners have too. How can we get in touch with you or learn more about additional resources that Fox Communities Credit Union can offer?
Sure, you can visit our website at foxcommunities.org, or just call the main line, ask for Mike the Car Guy. They'll get you to me. My direct line is 920-993-3508, and my email is mpastorelli@foxcu.org. Always glad to help our members out.
All right, Mike, we'll have to get the car guy back again to talk further. So many questions left unanswered. We'll get Mike back, I think, another time. Thanks for being with us, Mike.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
All right. When we come back, we're talking about fraud and specifically tax fraud, answering some questions to those things when we come back with Bringing It to You Straight here on WHBY. And once again, welcome in to Bringing It to You straight answers to your financial questions with Fox Communities Credit Union. I'm Haley Tenpass, and we are focused on fraud in this last segment of the show. Joined once again by Heidi Keeker, BSA and Fraud Officer with Fox Communities Credit Union. Welcome back, Heidi.
Hi, Haley. Thank you.
Glad
to be back.
Yes, great to have you with us today. You have so much information to share with us, and it's really timely. Of course, it's tax season, and we hate to see people getting taken advantage of, but it's happening even during this time and during a time where everyone is really focused on something very important, which is getting those taxes filed. So how are scammers out there taking advantage of people during tax season?
Yeah, so scammers are always looking for ways to take advantage of people, and tax season is no different. Especially as the tax season and deadline comes closer, scammers create urgency to get people to act quickly without people even giving a second thought. So to give some background, the Internal Revenue Service, known as the IRS, is the government agency that collects federal taxes. The scammers use the IRS as a way to collect money from innocent people by pretending to be the IRS officials to get you to send them money.
Ugh, that's just really, really silly of them, you know?
Right.
So how does this scam work, Heidi? Can you fill us in?
Yeah, so good question. So typically, in typical situations, you get a call. Typically, everyone has caller ID on their phones, and it might show that it is the IRS calling. Scammers can spoof phone numbers to make it look like it's the actual IRS calling, but it's really the scammer. So if you answer it thinking that it is them, the caller might, give a badge number or know, like the last four digits of your Social Security number as an example, or know some form of identifying information about you, which makes you believe that it really is the IRS. And then typically you're told, you owe money, or you better pay now or you'll be arrested, or put money on a prepaid debit card or wire it to us. So just in those terms, they're creating urgency to the person who's answering the call. Typically, these calls are robocalls, which means that they sound like a robot and are actually not a real person. The scammers might also ask you to enter your account information or debit card information over the phone. If you do pay, you may not even realize you fell for a scam, especially if you didn't owe real taxes in the first place, or until perhaps when the real IRS sends you a letter requesting payment for your unpaid taxes is when you might make the realization. So now what you thought was a real payment to the IRS is actually a scam, and the money you sent to the scammers is now gone.
Wow. It's a scary situation, Heidi.
Mm-hmm. It happens so fast that you just don't even have time to, react appropriately in a normal state.
And I think what is so frustrating about it is the phone numbers that pop up when these scammers are calling us. Sometimes they are local numbers. They appear to be coming from somewhere in our own community, or they appear to be the legitimate number for the IRS. It's very, very confusing and frustrating. Yes. But I would imagine, Heidi, that there are some red flags out there, or maybe some warning signs to look for to maybe prevent falling for one of these.
Yeah, so a couple things I wanted to talk about were, let's talk about how the IRS would initially, be reaching out to you if you did, in the event did owe taxes. They wouldn't contact you by phone. They won't email you, and typically they'll send you a letter in the mail. That's usually how they correspond. And then secondly, how will the IRS ask you to pay, right? They won't ask you to pay with a prepaid debit card. They won't ask you to pay with a money transfer. And they typically don't require a specific type of payment. And I always say if you typically work with a tax professional, the tax professional will give you the information on how to pay your taxes appropriately to the IRS. So they will set you up, with the information or where the address that you should send the payment to, if it's a check or cashier's check or some form of payment like that.
Okay, this is important, so I want to just repeat it again. So if the IRS is actually reaching out to you. They will not contact you by phone, and they won't email you, but they will mail you a letter.
Correct, yes.
Okay. So what if the unfortunate happens, Heidi, we've maybe received one of these calls. What would you say we do next?
Yeah, so there are a couple steps. If you do realize maybe you don't receive that letter, or you suddenly realize, like, there's a lot of red flags, maybe I did fall for a scam. If you're on the call, don't give the caller the information, such as your financial or other personal information. Write down details as much as you can of the call, such as the phone number or the name of the caller, if you get that, or any badge number or anything that they might give you. Of course, then once you get that, hang up. Don't proceed with the call. Contact the IRS directly. If you do think that you owe taxes, look up the IRS's phone number on their website and call them directly, and report the fake call to the IRS. Any information that you can provide to them helps them track, and hopefully can track down maybe some scammers that are in a ring of doing this. And lastly, just warn your friends and family to prevent them from falling for a scam like this. Maybe you didn't fall for it, or you did fall for it, and passing along the information to help someone else to protect and prevent them from falling for it.
Heidi, unfortunately, some people do get scammed in this. They do fall for these. So what if you find out, oh my goodness, I've been a victim of one of these tax scams?
Yeah, so if you do take the above steps, if you do receive the call and let's say you gave out information, reach out to your financial right away to tell them what happened, what information may be compromised, what information did you give out, what information did the scammers have. Maybe it was your account number you gave out, your debit card information, your Social Security number, whatever it is. It might be a little embarrassing and think, oh, I never fall for scams, but you just need to be honest with, your financial, because we're on your side to help protect you, your identity and your assets. So they will walk you through the necessary steps in order to best protect you.
It really can happen to anyone. These scammers are so tricky and can be so convincing sometimes. But we are glad to have folks like you, Heidi, to kind of give us some, a fight in this, and to know what to look for, what that signs to look for as well. So, Heidi, where can our listeners go to find more information about tax scams?
Yeah, so I wanted to mention, too, in addition to information on tax scams, I did want to mention that the tax filing deadline has been extended from the usual April 15th tax deadline to Monday, May 17th. So be aware of that. That can also kind of play a factor in how scammers might change their tactics this year. So in addition to that, you can find more information on the extension deadline and tax scams by going to irs.gov. In addition to this, you can go to ftc.gov, which is the Federal Trade Commission, which helps America's consumers with scams like this. Both of these websites are great and have information on reporting a tax scam. So both great resources.
And of course, you can always contact Fox Communities Credit Union. Heidi, where can they go to learn more from you?
Yeah, so they can certainly reach out to our call center number at 920-993-9000, and they can certainly ask for me.
Heidi Keeker, BSA and Fraud Officer with Fox Communities Credit Union. Always great to have you wrap things up here on Bringing It to You Straight. Thanks for the wealth of information today, Heidi.
Yes, thank you so much.
All right, and that has been our second edition of Bringing It to You Straight answers to your financial questions with Fox Communities Credit Union. We'll see you next month. We've got more of Focus Fox Valley coming up next.